coming tonight. First of all, I'm going to start by giving you a little background about myself and why I'm here tonight talking about marriage. So I am a licensed mental health counselor and a board-certified behavior analyst. I have been working in the field for going on 13 years, specifically in the field of counseling. I worked at different organizations, well, actually just one organization for 10 years. And then 2 years ago, I opened my own practice, point-to-point counseling. Here in Bridgepoint Church, I have a small office in the back corner, which has been a really nice opportunity. The idea was that I would be able to offer counseling services to people, but also if there were people in the church that could benefit from some counseling services, maybe some marriage counseling or with kids or individual or family. And if they didn't have insurance or maybe just wouldn't go seek it out or couldn't afford it, that I would be able to provide that kind of pro bono. So it's been really amazing. God has really blessed it, and his hand has been on it from the very beginning. So it's been amazing. So and growing. So tonight, my presentation, some of this stuff is new for me. I'm a counselor in an office, not a presenter by profession. So here we go, maybe. Where do I point it? Oh, there we go. Okay. Breaking marriage myths. Redefining what it means to have a healthy marriage. That's our topic tonight. I'm going to be talking about 7 myths. These are just basically assumptions that we come into with relationships. It may or may not speak to you, but these are ones that I have found during my time of counseling that seem to come up a lot, that we often have these preconceptions about what a marriage is going to be like, or what is healthy versus what is not healthy, and sometimes those rules that we follow get us into more trouble. A lot of these things are things that I have, or some of them are things that I've come up with on my own, and then some are things that I am stealing from other authors and counseling professionals. And so I'll cite those counseling professionals, and some are Christian and counselors, and some are not. This verse, 1 Corinthians 13:4-8, I am sure that this is very familiar to most people here. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Love never fails. If you were like me, this was the verse that we had at our wedding and started our marriage that way. So, is it that easy? No, this is the recipe. This is what it should be. This is what Scripture tells us, but often we find that we're not very patient. And when things aren't going our way, we're not very kind, and we do get jealous, and we do get angry, and we do remember what you did 10 years ago. So, and really, all of this is true, okay? And And I believe that God, ordains marriage, and Scripture is very clear about what God feels about marriage. But it is not easy. There isn't like a magic that I can tell you that do this and then that's it. But it does take hard work, and it takes being intentional on some things. And so tonight we're going to talk about each of the myths, and then I'm going to give you a truth, and then I'm going to give you some tips and tools to help you practice in those new truths. One of the ways I like to talk about just counseling in general with people, and hopefully it's not too discouraging, but a lot of times we want a simple fix. We want an easy. We want, hey, tell me this information, and then that'll be it. Try this, that'll be it. We want a pill to make us skinny. We want, we want to be strong, so we want to go to the gym. And then when we get done with our workout, we look in the mirror like, wait, where's my muscles? I don't see it. Because we've got to take this information, and then we've got to practice it, and we've got to do it over and over and over and over. We don't get strong, and we're not automatically strong by going to the gym one time. We have to go over and over and over and over, and eventually we start to see the fruits of our labor. Also, additionally, I can give you all of this information. You can get lots of great information. You can take lots of great scripture, lots of great preaching. But really, all of those things are tools. And if you don't pick up the tool and use it, if I give you a hammer and you just leave it there, all it is a piece of metal on a stick. So you have to take these things, apply them, practice them over and over and over and over. Marriage myths. Here we go. These are listed: red flags, all you need is love, my hero, arguing is bad, words never hurt, 50-50, and never would I ever. I think we could put that all together in a country song. Myth number 1, red flags. The other thing I'm going to say too is, so some of these things are, these things are going to be applicable for any point of your marriage. Some things maybe would have been good before you got married, but it doesn't mean that it's not still useful. And if you have young kids someday, share some of these with them as well. So red flags. Time and time again, I hear people tell me, I'm dating this person, or we got married and he seemed really nice, she was really great, and I just, I saw a few red flags, but, it was okay. So what happens when we wait for the red flags? If we're waiting for the red flags, what happens is we enter the relationship because they were so cute, she was so beautiful, this and that, all these the chemistry, the sparks are flying, right? But then we get hooked and we're in the relationship. So now when we see some of those red flags, it's already too late. Okay? Marriage truth is that we need to confirm our standards. So, Again, you guys are already in relationships, so we can't just start over from scratch. But if you have someday young kids who are in their teenage years and they're looking at who do I want to date, I always recommend create a needs and a wants list. What is it that you need in a relationship? And what is it that you want? Okay? And it can be exhaustive. Like, do as many needs as you want and as many wants as you want. Okay? The needs are non-negotiables. What are the things you absolutely need? Honesty, loyalty, to love their family, whether or not they want kids or not. Sometimes one person really wants kids, and they start dating, and the other person doesn't, but they didn't find that out before they started dating. I think that these things can also, I do use this with couples once they're already married as well, because now we're connected, we're in this, we are married, we're committed, but there are these issues. So it's still, at this point, you can go back and you can make a needs and a wants list. What are the things that need to be worked on? What are the things, identify some of the areas of the things that need to be worked on so that you can start to communicate those things. Because if we don't know what it is, then how can we work on it? The first stage of fixing any problem is identifying the problem. Okay, now this doesn't mean attacking the person, and we're going to talk about how you do this as well. So it's not about attacking the person and saying, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. But you do need to be reflective and say, okay, what are the things that I need in this relationship? Identify some of the problems. Okay, the needs are the non-negotiables. The wants are, it would be nice if they liked to travel because I like to travel. But is that negotiable or not? It's up to you. Marriage myth 2. Love is all you need. Marriage truth. Commitment sustains when your love tank is empty. So often we hear, well, I really love them, and all you need is love. Love is the most important, and it is, love is very important. But love takes work. So when the fireworks and when all the exciting times disappear, when the honeymoon phase is over, when you don't feel all the feels and feel the love, the commitment has to take over. So love is a feeling, and it's also an action. We have to make choices. We have to choose to find the things that we do love about that person. Remind ourselves why we chose that person. On our needs and wants list, remind yourself the ones that they do meet. Okay? What are the things? Why did you pick that person in the first place? Commitment is a choice. So we decide whether or not we're going to keep going every day, even when it's hard. The scripture, 2 Corinthians 10:5, says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. This is something I use a lot. Take captive every thought. Now that probably seems challenging, and really is, because we think anywhere from, and I'm stealing this from some of the work that Jenny Allen did, but anywhere from 8,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. So it's a lot of thoughts. And I think 90% are repeated thoughts, and 85% of them are often negative. So we are repeating these negative thoughts over and over and over and over every single day. So we have to learn to, I always use like a lasso, think of it like a lasso, that we're going to like lasso each of those thoughts, and we're going to bring it in, take it captive. We have to stop it, and we have to replace it with something that's going to be more productive. So even if when everything seems so terrible and bad in the relationship, maybe the thing is, well, I am committed. I'm making that choice. Maybe you force yourself to think about, okay, there's all these things that I'm really upset about, all of these negative things, but what are the things that I'm grateful for? If you can get yourself to start thinking positive thoughts, things that you're grateful for from the other person, from your spouse, gratitude will start to spread. So negativity, we hear that negativity breeds more negativity. So does gratitude. So does positivity. But we do have to work on it. We have to practice it. And even at times where maybe it seems like I don't really have anything good to say, well, we have to think of one thing, and then another thing, and another thing. They say that 3 positive thoughts creates a new neural pathway. 3 negative thoughts creates a new negative neural pathway in our brain. So all those negative thoughts that we're having, that's why they repeat so fast and so often, because we're constantly making new negative pathways that all of a sudden we get on a high-speed train of negativity. So we have to force ourselves to think of the positive. It's a choice. My hero. The hero complex. This is when we view relationships like the Cinderella story, that Prince Charming is going to sweep us off of our feet. It's going to be so handsome and perfect, and we're going to ride off into the sunset and be happily ever after. And we all know that that is a fairy tale, but often we still approach relationships this way. We often feel like this person, if I am lonely, if I am in a relationship with somebody, I won't feel lonely anymore. So often, this is where I'm going to use my hands, often we get somebody who is, this is an individual who has a lot of brokenness in their life. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's feeling unworthy, unlovable. Maybe it's grief or sadness. Could be anything, okay? Past hurts. And if in my brokenness, I think I need somebody else to help me with this, I meet another broken person, and I'm going to come together with this person, and they fill my loneliness. They make me feel better about myself. They complimented me. They let me cry on their shoulder. So it feels really good, right? Because all that brokenness now feels filled by that other person. But I want everybody to do this with me. Go ahead and clasp your hands like this. Okay? I want you to feel how that feels. Think about the foundation. If your arms are the foundation, is this strong? Is there anything strong about this foundation? Yes? No? No, there's not. Okay? And what happens is when your partner isn't there for you one time, or gets angry and won't let you cry on their shoulder, they're no longer feeling that for you. Or what happens worse if you're no longer together? You're still broken. They're still broken. We have to work on our own individual things, and we have to recognize that all of those voids in our life, if we need to work on those things, it has to be our own working of it, our own processing, not dependent on somebody else. And if there are voids, those voids, I always say we have to get right vertically. Any of those voids have to come and be filled from what we know about God. My loneliness. Well, God says that he will never leave us or forsake us. He's with us. My worth. Well, each one of us is made in God's image. That gives us inherent worth. My value. You were made you were wonderfully and fearfully made. God created us exactly how he wanted us to be. So all of these things we have to make sure that we work on independently, okay? So then healthy me, then maybe I still have some areas that are struggling, and I'm going to turn to my relationship with God to fill that for me. So healthy me meets healthy he, and we come together. Now try this. How does that feel? If you push that together. Supportive, right? Not messy dependent, but it's supportive. It's pointing up, and you grow together. And it's strong. So the marriage truth is we must be whole individuals who we fill our brokenness with God, not with the other person. Arguing is bad. I see this a lot where people have a conception that anger is bad and arguing is bad. And so I just don't want to do that, so I will avoid it because I don't want to get into conflict. But the truth, marriage truth, is I would actually tell you, fight little, fight often, and fight little. I wrote it wrong on there. But fight often and fight little, okay? And I don't mean these heated. That's what the fight little means. But what happens is the things that we're upset about don't just go away, okay? But we learn a lot of times not to deal with our feelings. So I brought this little bottle. I talk about this in terms of our feelings, and this bottle represents our bodies. All of our feelings carry energy with it, okay? I'm sure you've had times where you can feel somebody's energy when they walk in the room, like they're angry, and you're like, oh, man, that was tense. You feel the tension, right? And that's where that comes from, because it carries energy. And so if we are upset about something, we have to express it. We have to share it. If we don't, what happens is it just goes in the bottle, in our body, and it gets stuck. And then if something else happens and we don't process and deal with it, it just gets layered on, layered on, layered on. And maybe we distract ourselves, or maybe we tell ourselves it's not that big of a deal, or maybe we do all these things to not really deal with it because arguing is bad and I don't want to do that. Okay? So what happens is we get full. Now we are this full pop bottle. And just like pop, there's the carbonation. And then the next time something happens when we're full, it's like shaking that bottle up. And what's going to happen? It's going to explode, right? Can happen to anyone, happens to everyone, because our bodies can only handle so much. Okay? So we have to learn how to take the lid off, open our mouths, and express it. Okay? So if we have a conflict, if there's something we disagree on, we have to be willing to bring it to the table, because it's just communication. Okay? We have to be willing to share our perspective and say it before it's full, before we yell it at somebody, before we attack the other person with it. If we do this on a regular basis, we can say it in a kind way and remain patient. We need to be able to communicate our perspective and listen to the other person's. Dr. Brene Brown, in her book, Rising Strong, she talks about writing our own story or writing a narrative. So a lot of times what we do is we will make a lot of assumptions about what we think that the other person means or what they are thinking. Or maybe even they say something or do something, and we will end up creating this whole story about what we think it means. And then we react to that. So it leads to distorted thinking and perspective. And it's often out of fears of like maybe rejection or feeling helpless or worthless. All those thoughts end up coming from some of our fears. We often write negative stories, not positive. Okay? So in order for us to fight often and little, we have to make sure that we're doing it on a regular basis. We have to express it. We have to say it. If you're having a hard time saying it, text it. Texting can be tricky at times because then you lose the tone and the verbal body language, I mean. But we have to express it. Write a letter. Talk about it. Get your perspective out. Okay. Now we're going to talk about how. Marriage myth number 5. And I don't really think this, I think we all know this, but you've heard the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. And I think we all know that this is not true. Hurtful words hurt. And a marriage truth is that hurtful words can actually be the first sign of no return. John Gottman and Julie Gottman, they are leaders in the field when it comes to marriage counseling. They've got lots of books. They've got the Gottman Institute. And they talk about the 4 horsemen. And these are relationship uh-ohs. When these, I didn't write it out, it's actually the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And so when you have these things in your relationship, once you move past some of them, it gets very, very toxic. And it is hard to work your way back out. Doesn't mean that you can't. That's where the commitment comes in as you work through it, but it is very difficult. If you flip to one of the last pages, you'll see the 4 horsemen. the handout. The 4 horsemen and how to stop them with their antidotes. So the first one, we're mainly, we'll talk about both sides of it. But the first one is criticism. So with criticism, when we are saying the things that we're not happy with, are we actually criticizing? Are we verbally attacking their personality or their character? So I always say you have to be very careful that you don't start your statements with, you are blah, blah, blah. You are lazy. You are selfish. You are a jerk. You are a fill in the blank. You are a terrible person. You are thoughtless. Okay? All of those things attack the core of the person. And we have to be very careful not to attack their personality or the character. Okay? What we do, and it says here, the gentle startup, talk about your feelings using I statements and express a positive need. What I talk about is identifying behavior and feeling. So when you don't listen to me, it makes me feel like it makes me sad. Or when you I don't know, what's a good problem? When you don't help put the kids to bed, it makes me feel hurt because you're not helping me. Okay? So identifying what the behavior is and then what the feeling is, because we can't argue feelings. Okay? If I feel sad, if I feel hurt, if I feel angry, it makes me angry. No one can argue what our feelings are. We are all entitled to our feelings on it. Okay? But it allows, when I identify what the behavior is, instead of saying, you're a jerk for not helping me with the kids, it's a very different approach. And we'll get a very different outcome. So be sure not to criticize, not to attack. I call them character assassinations. We don't want to do that. Contempt. Attacking the sense of self-worth with an intent to insult or abuse. Again, this is just a little bit more heated, where you are actually really trying to attack that person, their character. It's much more, it's that next level of verbal abuse. Defensiveness, victimizing yourself to ward off a perceived attack and reverse the blame. So this is when we start this, all this starts, it's kind of like one starts, then the next starts, and then that we become defensive and we're not even listening anymore, and we just push it back on the person, okay? So we've turned off our ability to even listen and accept any feedback, because we can't, if we're being attacked all the time, if arrows are being shot at us, then we have to learn how to protect ourselves. And the last one is stonewalling. That is where you withdraw to avoid any conflict and convey disapproval, distance, and separation. When the stonewalling begins, that's when you just say, I don't care. I'm done. We're just going to be roommates. We're not going to be emotionally connected anymore because it's too dangerous. Okay? On the other side, it talks about the statements using the I statements, or the identify feeling, behavior and feeling statements. Focusing on the other person's positive qualities and finding gratitude. We talked about that too. Taking responsibility, not just throwing up the defenses, but listening to what the person is saying and taking some responsibility for it. Offering an apology when you have done something wrong. Okay? And then making sure that you are taking time to take breaks, use some good coping skills, talk to somebody, vent. Some distraction can be okay too. So those are good tips. Myth number 6, 50-50. So a lot of times, I hear this a lot when applied to a relationship, and evaluating how much effort the other person puts in, or what the roles, what the expectations are. And a lot of times the goal might be 50-50. It's not a bad goal, but I encourage Marriage Truth to be 80-20. The reason I say 80-20 is because we want to overshoot. So if I feel like I am giving 80% to this marriage and they feel like they're giving 80% to this marriage, then in actuality, you're probably close to 50-50. Okay? When our aim is 50-50, we're probably falling short. Some of the toolbox tips. A lot of times in relationships, we have unspoken expectations that we think the other person should do this or do that, and we don't ever really speak it. We just expect it, and then when it didn't happen, we're upset about it. So talk it out. What are the expectations? If one of you, and things have changed a lot. Now we have women working a lot. And so now if the expectation is that, well, we're both working, but you're going to do all the cooking, cleaning, housekeeping, and I'm just going to go to work and not do that. I'll just do the yard work. Well, you might find one person feels really tired. Okay? Or let's say it is the husband's going to work and the wife is home. Well, what does that look like? Because if we haven't defined it out of what those expectations are, we might need to clarify, hey, this is what I've been doing during the day, so that they don't come home and have these expectations and just be upset. Love and respect. Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, I think that's how you say it, he talks about in his book the cycle of love and respect. So the number one thing that a woman needs in a relationship is to feel loved. And there's other qualities, but when they have done their studies, the number one thing that comes back is they want to feel loved and cherished. The number one thing that a man wants is to feel respected, okay? And what happens is this is a very cyclical relationship with this. If the woman does not feel loved adequately in the relationship, she will not respect the husband in the right way, in the way that he needs. And if the husband is not feeling respected in the way that fulfills him, he is not going to love his wife in the way that she needs to be loved. So it can very easily get broken, and we have to be aware of that, because we may need to be the one to be willing to make the change first. If it is not healthy in your relationship, you might need to say, instead of saying, well, once he loves me the way I deserve to be loved, then I'll respect him. And if that's your attitude, you're not going to get that cycle going in a healthy way. Or, I'll love her when she shows me a little respect. Same thing. That's not going to get it going. So we have to be willing to, I'm going to build him up and tell him all the things that I'm proud of and thankful for and show him respect, even if we're struggling with it. Or men, I'm going to love her. Actually, Scripture charges the man to love his wife as Christ loved the church, and that he would lay down his life for his wife. That is really big stuff. But that is the commission. So we need to check, how are we doing on this? I, as a wife, am I respecting my husband enough? Am I building him up and encouraging him? Or am I tearing him down? As a husband, am I doing enough to love my wife and supporting her? And lastly, marriage myth number 7. Never would I ever. I think that we go into relationships with really great intentions, and I don't think any of us would go into a relationship and think that I'm probably going to cheat on this person sometime. But unfortunately, and I don't have the statistics on it, I should have gotten the statistics, but infidelity happens a lot. 60+%. So 60% of women and 70% of men, 70+% of men engage in infidelity. But I bet at one point they believed that they never would. So marriage truth is we have to be intentional, and we have to create and assess the guardrails. We have to put up protections. We have to guard our marriage. There are 4 areas that I would say are indicators, some of the warning signs, those risks. And when you notice these things, pay attention. Do something about it. Don't just think, I would never. The first one is, and they can be in any order, and it may be that 1 or 2, and it could be that you have this with another individual, and but the other 2 are not there, and so it might be okay. But the more that you have, the more warning signs that you have, the more likely your marriage is heading for infidelity. So one of them is opportunity. What type of opportunity do I have with another individual? Okay? Is there opportunity? Am I alone with somebody else? What kind of situations am I putting myself in? It's probably not safe to be alone with somebody of the opposite sex for a long period of time who's not your husband or your wife. Okay? It's a warning sign. It's not always, the other things have to be there. Number 2, attraction. Am I attracted to this other person? Are they cute? Are they handsome? Are they beautiful? Okay? In of itself is not a bad thing. There's going to be attractive people that we come across all the time, and we might think that they're attractive. In of itself, not horrible. But if the other things are there, if they're attractive and I'm alone with that person, could be bad. 3 is comfort. How comfortable am I with this person? Am I getting to know them? Am I talking about vulnerable things? Are they listening to my feelings? Am I getting comfortable with this person? One thing with this too, with comfort, if you're at a party and you add alcohol, comfort and even attraction, those can slip very easily, right? So you have to be careful. And then the 4th one is dissatisfaction or satisfaction. How satisfied are you in your current relationship? Or how dissatisfied are you? Okay? Perfect storm. You are fighting with your husband all the time. The kids are crazy, or your wife, you're fighting. You just can't see eye to eye. The kids are crazy. The job is stressful. So stressed. Not super satisfied in my life right now. And John down the road, been hanging out. We've been hanging out with them. And we've been getting to know each other. He's really cute. And he comes over to help me fix something while my husband's gone. Okay? It's a recipe for a disaster, even if you said that you would never, ever do that. Okay? So we have to be careful. If you find somebody attractive, if you are noticing that you're spending a lot of time with this person and you're getting comfortable, don't create opportunities. Be very intentional to not allow opportunities. Don't be around that person without your spouse or another person. Work on your relationship. Focus on the things that you're thankful for about your relationship, the positive things. Think about that commitment, that choice that you made. Don't be vulnerable with a person of the other sex. It's dangerous. It's not meant to be. We hear about emotional affairs. Well, you're not supposed to connect emotionally with another man. Women and men, you're not supposed to emotionally connect with another woman. I'll make sure I'm getting that right. If you're connecting with somebody else, then you're not connecting with your spouse. And you need to work on that. You need to start expressing yourself. Couple of things here. This is, you have another handout called the marriage meetings. It looks like this, just a template. This is a marriage meeting. This is something that you can use as a tool. If you are having a difficult time communicating, or if you find that you've got a lot of these horsemen in your marriage, and when you try to talk it out, you just can't, okay? And conflict gets in the way. What you can do is you can use this form, and number 1, your name, you're going to, maybe it's Carolyn to Ryan, and then Ryan to Carolyn. And then we start with affirmations. We're going to start with the things that we're thankful for that person. What are 2 things that they did this week that you noticed positive, that you were thankful for? What are 2 things that you love about this person, or at least like about this person? Then we move on to some to-dos, because we know in marriage there's always to-dos, and sometimes we don't speak it. Sometimes we don't speak the expectations, and when it doesn't get done, we're just angry. So talk about it. Put it down. List it out. Plans for fun. A lot of times when we're angry at each other and we're fighting, we don't make plans for just connecting and having fun. Away from the kids, away from the job and the house and all the chaos, right? And so you'll see there's alone. Maybe there's some things, maybe moms, you're home with the kids all day, or maybe you need to take some time for yourself and go get a massage, or get your nails done, get your hair done. I think there's a song about that too. Men, they need to go out and sit in the woods, right? Go shoot a deer. So alone time, we might need to build that in and make plans for that. Together time, what are we going to do together as a couple? And then family time, what are we going to do as a family? Plan it out. And then lastly, once we do all the fun stuff, what are some of the problems? What are some of those things from that needs and wants list that we need to address? Not attacking, not you are a jerk because you don't do this. No. This is something that I need. I'm going to identify it. How are we going to work on it? All right. That's something that you can do. Plan a time. Should take about 45 minutes to get through. So maybe after you put the kids to bed. And, okay. There we go. So, marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard. Being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose, I missed one. Oh, being financially in debt, I missed it, is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Communication is hard. Not communicating is hard. Choose your hard. Life will never be easy. It will always be hard. But we can choose our hard. So pick wisely. Okay. And that is all I have. And that came straight off of Facebook this morning. So thank you, Elaine Bogner, for posting that today. All right, thanks.